Hello and welcome to What's Happening, a show where we discuss EV news across the globe with Omkar and Manish. So Manish, new studio season 2, how's it going?
Feels pretty good. We took a break, 3 months, I guess holiday break, you could call it. And here we are, season 2, new studio, new topics. So yeah, good to go.
A lot of things have happened in the last 3 months. I mean, the EV industry was bubbling. Things were pretty slow because of the election now, and then once the election are done, we are back up and again across the world. A lot of news to start with. I think first we can go about with the favorites, the Tatas. Tata just recently launched the Tata Curvv, and a lot of things to discuss about over here. So let's go at it.
Yeah, so it just hot off the presses. So they launched both the Curvv.ev and the Curvv Ice variants of it. And the big thing really was the pricing around the EV version. So the pricing of the EV version starts anywhere from 17.5 to 22 lakhs. And then of course onwards a little bit more. But at 22 lakhs, the top end kind of competes with, although maybe not a fair comparison, but competes with the Creta, which is the mid-size SUV. So they're calling it the coupe SUV. So it's got kind of like that aerodynamic look, and at the end it kind of, has that little notch at the back to make it look more sporty. But like I said, the two things they're trying to go after is, one is compete with traditional ICE manufacturers, and then second is also compete with the existing players in the EV space. So that is the MG ZS EV is a direct competitor, and with the battery pack of 45 and 55 kilowatt hours, pretty sizable. The other thing that was interesting is, they gave the typical ARAI range, but then they gave what they call the real world range.
The C75 range.
C75. And something I've always said is you can always, basically knock 25% off of whatever they mention as the ARAI range. And here they've kind of almost maps to that. And it's been pretty interesting, the pricing that they've given, the range, and the features that you get in it. I think it remains to be seen as how it looks on the road. They've tried to give it kind of, when I look at it, it has the vibe of a Porsche Cayenne coupe SUV. Now, the question is, how does it look on the road? But very excited. And obviously there's been a lot of press around it because this is the fifth car in the EV stable. There's the Tiago, the Tigor, the Nexon, the EV Punch, and then this one. So
yeah, it's the second car on the Acti EV platform, so very excited to actually see the full sort of potential of this further down the line. In terms of the battery, as you mentioned, it's 45. They have two variants, the 45 kilowatt hour variant and the 55 kilowatt hour variant, which is typically, I think the range is about 500 kilometers of range. One thing, very interesting thing is that now the C rate has increased for these particular vehicles. Now they are boasting a C rate of 1.2 C. You can necessarily get in a 15 minute of charge, what they're saying, you can get a range of 150 kilometers.
Correct.
So not the best in the industry, but still pretty good in terms of what is offering in the particular market. What struck out to me was the entire design language of course of Curvv. Tata boasted a lot about their own design factory that they're set up now in the UK and in Italy, collaborating again with an Indian counterpart. So Tata is actually taking the Indian automotive design language to the globe, which is also looking very interesting. And I think this is on the footprints of what Pratap Bose necessarily started in the early 2018, and it's looking very promising on how Tata is actually, keeping up with the entire design language of their own vehicles. I think that is something that the entire automotive space in India will kind of look forward to and be very inspired from what Tata has actually offered over here. So another particular thing that they interestingly announced in yesterday's launch was their new aggregator platform. So I think they're partnering up with almost 20 CPOs.
Yeah, 20 of the largest CPOs. And I think that's what they're trying to address a lot of the issues that people have. One is around range anxiety. Second is finding a charging location. So previously, obviously, you'd only have Tata Easy chargers in the app. And now they're working with all the top CPOs, whether it's ChargeZone, GeoBP. So they'll all appear in the app and on the screen. So if you're, planning a trip, let's say that's 200, 300, 400 kilometers away, it'll kind of tell you along the way where there are are available, and they say on-time status, whether it's being charged or whether it's being used or it's not faulty or things like that. So that is something they're trying to address a lot of the issues that people have around getting an EV. One was around pricing, second was around range anxiety, and now third is this idea of a super aggregator for all the charge point operators across India.
I mean, one of the very normal questions that comes about when aggregator as a word comes about over here is, isn't Google doing something similar with Google Maps? Even on Google Maps, on that particular route, you can sort of search for where the charging stations are. So how would aggregator app from an OEM would be different than what you would find on a Google Maps?
So I think what is happening is there are multiple people trying to solve this issue, and what ends up usually happening is the base would be if these charge point operators would just feed the data to Google, and then you can get the information from Google, and then anyone can use it. I think the way it's working today is because Tata has such a big name, all the charge point operators are sending their data directly to Tata's, and they have it. But the truth is, it really should be, I almost feel like a third party that manages all the information, so anyone can use it, And I think that's at some point we'll get to that level, but right now we're not. So there are different, there is stuff in Google Maps. How accurate it is, I'm not sure. Then you've got these independent apps that people are using, and then of course now Tata has access. And I believe some of the the other EV manufacturers like MG also are planning on doing a super aggregator style as well. So like I said, there's multiple ways of attacking this problem. The whole idea is at some point it'll just be a no-brainer. You can go either to the app in your car or you can go to Google Maps, and it'll provide the same updated information.
Yeah. So I think that's about it from Tata. Very interesting stuff. So the next news I think we can go about is, let's go something exciting, was Ferrari finally announced their first EV.
Anytime anyone says Ferrari, it just puts a smile on my face from ear to ear. So, Ferrari for the longest time has said we will never build a four-door car, we'll never build an SUV. All of that, of course, was all talk, and then they finally released the Sangue last year. Actually, the first Ferrari Sangues came to India about 3-4 months ago, so they're on the road. And people always said Ferrari will never build an EV, but they just announced about 2-3 weeks ago that they have built a new building in Modena, or I think it's Maranello. They've got an e-factory that will build all their new EVs. And they're saying that they're going to build up to 20,000 units per year, and they're going to price it at around $500,000 entry level, which of course with Ferrari, with all the carbon fiber and this and that, even the little Ferrari Cavallino shield, that's an extra price option. I'm sure the average price of that car will be around $600,000-$700,000. But the thing is, it's very typical of the way Ferrari does things, is they do it in their own way. When you look at the Sangue versus the Urus, it's almost like you can't compare the two, because the Sangue is so different from the way the Urus is and every other SUV on the road. And I think the same thing will be with this EV. They will do things very differently, and I'm sure people will naturally gravitate towards even that, even though a hardcore Ferrari enthusiast will say a Ferrari should be a two-door V8 V12 mid-engine car. But the truth is, times change, people change, and your customer dynamic, your persona of your customer also changes. And some people want EVs, and I think that's what's going to happen with Ferrari. I'm sure they'll sell all 20,000 before it's even, launched. Just like the Sangue today has like a 2 to 3 year waiting period.
But this is amazing news, because this is finally one of the bigger luxury sports manufacturers are going all into EVs. So pretty excited to actually see what the car comes about, the specs of the car, and how it compares to others that are there. In this particular segment, there were other luxury sport EVs. You had the Pininfarina, Battista. You had multiple other really luxury sports vehicles, but this will be actually one of those coming from Ferrari.
From the badge of Ferrari,
exactly.
you had the Rimac, Navara, all of the Rimac cars, they're all electric, and they're the ones that actually provided a lot of the tech to Porsche for their 800 volt architecture. So, Rimac has been around a long time, like you mentioned, even the Pininfarina, Battista, all of that also from Rimac. But this will be from, a storied house, the house of Ferrari. And I think I'm definitely looking forward to that car, for sure.
Might have to do a pilgrimage to Modena then.
Definitely, anytime.
Speaking of Rimac then, of course we know Rimac, for their amazing cars, Rimac Navara, which actually was one of the fastest production cars a couple of years ago. They are now announcing a bit of a pivot that they want to enter into robo taxis. The early production vehicle is going to be out this year, and they actually want to start production vehicles from 2026. So, I mean, that's a pretty interesting kind of a change. Robo taxis. There are multiple companies who are, trying to do a lot of things into robo taxis. There's a, of course, very famous company called Zoox, who is very, very near production and actually, coming about, starting their own services. What do you think of this?
Yeah, I mean, so you mentioned Zoox. There's also Tesla is supposed to announce. They were supposed to announce something on August 8th, but now they've moved that to sometime in December 10, 10. But the fact that Rimac is doing this, I think at one point the founder Matti Rimac mentioned that there's only a limited number of customers you can sell high-end EVs to. And I think they realize, at some point you're going to reach the ceiling. And then how do you expand the company? How do you get into new markets? And I think robo taxis is one where, they realize that this is almost an endless supply of business because you need taxis everywhere. And if you can get the pricing down and you can kind of deploy these in all over the world. And I think that is, like you said, it's an interesting pivot from a guy. When you hear him talk, he's been a diehard car enthusiast. And for him to kind of move, I think it just shows you that, he's kind of evolved. He's kind of got more of a business sense and understanding what works and what doesn't work. And I think it'll be great because I think more and more, you've got more different mobility options are great. When I hear people talk about what's available in San Francisco, a lot of the self-driving cars from Cruise and Waymo, people say it's an amazing experience. It's like the first time when you used Uber, you use an app, you hit the button and some car comes to pick you up. It's amazing. Now they say it's more amazing when you hit a button and then a car comes to you with nobody inside. You jump in the car, you shut the door, and then it takes you where you want to go. And I think that's the same thing that Rimac has realized is there's a whole nother market they can go after. And now that they've got the base technology, the base architecture in place, now they can kind of build on top of it.
Exactly. And I think I love the way they've cashed up now with a lot of these essentially powertrains that they have in. They have the technology for it. They're the main base technology for it. And so building their main problem or the main challenge in this would be just building the self-driving sort of capability, which in a way the research of this has been going on for like decades now. So yeah, I think that's why they're saying that the production vehicle would start out in 2026.
Yeah, and I think one thing that needs to be talked about a lot is the fact that he started this company in Croatia, and in Croatia, I'm pretty sure he didn't get any government help. It's just him and a bunch of people, and they've built a name that's recognized worldwide. And I think that's one of the things that I hope we can do more and more of those kind of things in India, because we have the density of talent is here, but from some reason, we don't get that level of, building that ecosystem like he's built in Croatia. Of all the countries I would have expected, that's the last country I thought would have this amazing technology coming out of it. So I think that's what the whole government's trying to do, is trying to do more and more of these, localized hubs of innovation, and I'm hoping we can see more and more of it.
I mean, from an Indian perspective, of course, like over the past couple of years, there have been multiple sort of moves by the government to actually create this particular ecosystem. Of course, with the PLI scheme, with the FAME and all of that, the implementation of it is a different story in itself, but at least the ideation of it is there. And honestly, if you see in the last, Indian automotive is not that old, right? We are like maybe 5 decades or 6 decades old, industry. And this in EV is particularly an opportunity where so many of the startups are actually challenging the status quo. And this particular change and this audacity to actually challenge an 50-year-old industry, I mean, this is happening because how rich, from a tech perspective, India always has been. So, and that's a very sort of exciting sort of thing to
Definitely
look after, and really looking forward to how like these smaller startups to actually make it big. So okay, then that's about it for season 2, episode 1 of What's Happening. I think a lot of things we covered. It was a very interesting couple of months.